Hey guys, FilthyRobot here, bringing you another guides, tips, and tricks video. This time we are talking about particularly important civic techs throughout the civic tech tree. So let's get into it and see what we're talking about. So let's break it down. I'm going to break it down by era, starting in the ancient era, of course. And I want to call your attention, especially as newer players, especially as players who don't have a strong sense of what they're doing in the game. I want to give you guys some civic techs that you really should be paying attention to, really consider prioritizing as technologies that you're going to want to research in the culture tree. So let's start with the ancient era. Early empire sticks out to me right off the bat as one of the most important ones you can get, in particular because of the card colonialization, which is going to give you 50% production towards settlers. Placing a lot of cities is extremely powerful in Civilization 6, and this is the most important early card that you can get, basically, because this is going to make that a much more efficient process for you building settlers. However, I also think military tradition is extremely powerful as a civics tech. It gives you a couple things that are worthy of note. The first of which is you now have flanking and support combat bonuses, which means that adjacency of your units is going to give you both defensive and offensive bonuses, which is really cool. As well as the 50% production towards ancient and classical era light cav units, heavy and light cav units, and both of these cavalry units as a whole being the most powerful unit type in the game. And then finally, actually, the access to great people points is also extremely important. So early empire and military tradition are really the two biggest ones in the ancient era. Moving on to the classical era, again, there's two civics texts in here that make the most sense to me. The first of these is or rather not make the most sense, but are the most powerful to me. First of these is games and recreation, believe it or not. This is solely because of the Colosseum. The Colosseum is just absolutely incredible. One of the best wonders in the game. We'll get to a wonder tier list in the not too distant future, but just really pay attention to this wonder. If you have the chance to snag this is really very, very powerful and worth grabbing if you can. With the way that you want to place your cities, you can hit so many cities with this that this AoE just becomes ridiculous. And the other really important civics tech in the classical era is political philosophy. This is going to give you access to your the three first governments that are available, and that brings your policy cards from 2 policy cards to 4 policy cards, which is a huge difference in the number of policy cards available to you, as well as opening up your first 2 diplomatic cards, which are both very, very good diplomatic cards that you're going to use throughout the course of the game. So political philosophy is the other civics tech that you really should be paying attention to in the classical era. Let's move on to medieval era. Medieval era is chock full of civics texts that are important. We're going to talk about 5 of them in this era, and there's only 7. So let's talk about the ones that are so good in here. First of these is feudalism. Feudalism is a game changer. It does have a small boost of allowing you to build farm triangles where adjacent farms give boost to each other. So you can get a lot of food here, but it's really not the food that's the biggest part of it. It's serfdom. Serfdom changes the way you use builders. Unless you're China or invested in pyramids, most times in the early game you're using builders to hit the first couple tiles that your city is going to work, or luxuries, and that's probably about it. You might invest in a little bit more, but your cities are going to be busy. You're going to be building your initial defense, you're going to be building tons of settlers, you're going to be getting basic housing infrastructure up, things like that. Feudalism really, serfdom really allows you to go from just the minimal number of improvements, because you don't have that many builder charges, to improving every single tile your city is working and actually getting ahead of the population growth in your cities. I think this policy is extremely powerful, especially considering how well it pairs with purchasing directly gold purchasing builders, where you can throw this policy in for 1 turn or 2 turns and purchase 5 builders across your empire, and then go back to using the other policies that you really like. Also worthy of note is civil service. Civil service offers meritocracy. This is the card that I really think is one of the best cards in the game. This is giving you +1 culture in each city for each specialty district, which is often at this time in the game between 2 and 4 districts in each city, which is a huge amount of culture boost for your empire as a whole. All right. Moving on, mercenaries is another extremely powerful civics tech. In particular, this is the professional army card, which is what I care about here. This is a 50% discount to all unit upgrades. So many strategies in Civilization, the Civilization series as a whole, but in particular Civ 5 and Civ 6, have been based around timing pushes, where you invest either in pre-building a unit or otherwise and then upgrading into it, because you have these very short technological timing windows to attack, right? Where you have a military tech and your opponent doesn't. and you want to maximize the amount of damage you can do during that to minimize the cost of the war on yourself. And the professional army card really is the epitome of that. This allows you to take your archers into crossbows, your warriors into swordsmen cheaply. At this era in the game, your heavy chariots into knights, and this is going to do that at twice the efficiency, basically, or half the cost. I guess it's not quite the same, but it's pretty damn similar to half the cost of doing it this way as it would any other way. Two other technologies that are really kind of important in this era, they are guilds and divine right. Guilds gives you the craftsman and lesser degree the town charter, but mostly the craftsman policy here, which is 100% industrial zone adjacency bonuses. Turns out production is by far the most important resource in Civilization 6 right now, and getting a card that essentially doubles the bonuses you're getting off of the production district is very, very powerful. This is another super awesome card to pay attention to, especially if you're just doing a lot of infrastructure, building a lot of buildings and a lot of districts. This one is going to really make that a more efficient process, which is very powerful. And finally, divine right is worth mentioning. I don't think very much of monarchy as a choice as a government very much, so there is another government here, but I don't think it's much better than the classical era governments. It's actually in some cases I think worse than classical republic, because you have gone from a 0-2-1-1 card layout to a 3-1-1-1 card layout, and a lot of times you don't need that many military cards here. But it does also offer the 50% production towards medieval, Renaissance, and industrial era heavy and light cav cards, which is extremely important as well, because as we know, light and heavy cav are just the most important units in the game, and having that card be available for you during your times of war is going to be extremely important. All right. Moving on, Renaissance era. There are 5 again in the Renaissance era. Renaissance era is another very, very important era for civics text. There's just so many good ones in here. We'll start with diplomatic service. Diplomatic service is your first spy, and spies are really cool and fairly powerful. The sabotage ability of spies is really, really good. It really slows down your opponents in particular. So this is your first available spy, which is awesome. Exploration, is the another one that's really worth noting. This is probably the most powerful of the second tier of governments. This is giving you a 1-2-1-2 government, which is a lot of the slots you want, the economic plus the wildcard slots, as well as having a basic military and a basic diplomatic slot. Extremely powerful just for the government option given to you. Reformed Church gives you another one worth talking about, which is theocracy. And theocracy, as generally not that great of a government choice, is the government choice that allows you to do faith purchasing. So if you have any sort of either timing push with military units that are faith purchased plan in mind, or if you're trying to do a religious victory as a whole, this is going to be a very powerful social policy to pick up this civics tech right here for theocracy. Finally, enlightenment. Rationalism is the single best card in the game. Bar none. There's nothing better than this card. You will, from the minute you get access to this card till the end of the game, you will be running this pretty much permanently. If you, not even if you can, you will have to make room for it because it is so damn powerful. So picking up getting to the enlightenment to get rationalism slotted into your government is going to be one of the best decisions you can make, and to do that as soon as possible is going to be particularly important. I said 5 cards, and I kind of lied because there's a bit of a joke card in here. I was going to call your attention to humanism gives you the chateau, which is super exciting. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Don't even worry about that. Humanism does give you your first real set of tourism cards, essentially, because you are going to be able to make use of art and archaeological museums. But as I said, I'm not going to make this about each specific victory type. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to really point you guys to the ones that you should be paying attention to. And that in the Renaissance tree is exploration, the Enlightenment, diplomatic service, and situationally sometimes Reformed Church. All right, moving on to the Industrial Era. There are 3 here that I want to talk about. The first of these is nationalism. Nationalism gives you, not only does it give you the additional spy, which is extremely good, as we talked about earlier, it also gives you the ability to form corps. And corps are extremely powerful. Corps and fleets, this one gives you the ability to form corps or fleets. And later on, you'll be able to upgrade corps or fleets into armies or armadas, which basically go from combining 2 units to make a corps or fleet to 3 units to a armada or army. The power of corps and fleets in particular are that it lets you get around the stacking penalty, or the stacking limitation that exists in the game right now. So Civilization 5, just like Civilization 6, just like Civilization 5, basically allows you to have 1 unit per tile. And this means that the available units you have to attack any position are limited by the number of tiles that interact with that position. So if you have a 2-range unit, yeah, you have some more tiles, maybe based on terrain, but in general, you're only going to have the units directly adjacent to it or 1 tile back able to interact with that tile at all, which limits the amount of power you can bring in, the amount of force you can bring in on this particular tile. Having cores be a stronger unit of the same type of that same era just by combining 2 previous units means that you can actually focus more directly on a specific set of tiles, even tiles that have limited access to them. That is extremely powerful in war. Cores and armies are game changers when it comes to how fights work out in Civilization 6. So this policy in particular is extremely powerful. 2 other ones to really pay attention to. Urbanization, this is another game changer. This is going to do away with housing as a problem whatsoever. Up until this point in the civics tree, housing will be a limiting factor in city growth. You will be struggling with housing throughout the course of the game just because of the way the housing mechanic works. Neighborhoods really make that a non-issue. At neighborhoods, you are able to grow your cities as large as you like them, or rather, housing no longer restricts the growth of your empire in any way, because neighborhoods are a very efficient way of gaining housing. So this is a really important policy as well. And finally, I do want to call your attention to natural history. There's a lot going on at natural history. Archaeologists come into play, and the zoos come into play. Zoos are your first area of effect. So these are area of effect amenity building. So just like factories are area of effect production, zoos are area of effect amenity, and this is an extremely powerful building in terms of increasing the amenities across your empire. All the area of effect stuff in this game are extremely good because of how densely you want to plant cities in Civ 6 right now. The best available strategies for you are as close as possible, as many cities as possible, and anything that is an area of effect is going to be extremely powerful for that. All right. Moving on into the modern era, there are 3 kind of that I want to talk about here. First of these is mobilization. Mobilization is the tech that unlocks armies and armadas. We just talked about how powerful cores and fleets were. Armies and armadas are better cores and fleets. They're even more powerful units that are going to even more efficiently get around that 1 unit per tile restriction. This is extremely powerful in all your warring to get mobilization as soon as you can. Ideology is your next spy, and I am particularly partial to spies at the moment. I'm really enjoying them. I think offensive spies are some of the more interesting and powerful indirect ways of attacking an opponent, where you don't have to be directly warring him, but you can very, very efficiently slow his progress through the use of spies. I think that's very cool. And then the third, it's three policies, but you generally pick between the 3 of these to look at are the tier 3 governments. So either suffrage, totalitarianism, or class struggle. All of these are very powerful abilities, giving you access to your next tier of government. Some cards to be particularly paying attention to in these are, well, to some degree, New Deal is quite powerful. Economic Union is quite powerful. Lightning Warfare, of course, is the next tier of Cav card, which is extremely important. And then these are all good. All the cards that come along with these governments are super good. But I was trying to pull out just the ones that really stand out to me. And the campus and industrial zone adjacency bonus being combined in 5-year plan is also extremely powerful. So these 3 cards just in general are really, really powerful if you're looking for civics cards in the modern era. So moving on to the atomic era, I have 3 pulled out here. Excuse me. No, I don't. I have 1 pulled out here, and that is Cold War. This one is really the policy that I care about in the atomic era, and what it's giving you access to is both an additional spy, and we've talked about that a number of times right now, as well as cryptography, which really makes your spies more efficient. It gives you two extra levels of defensive spy in your lands and 1 extra level of offensive spy, which is just awesome. If you get that ahead of your opponents, you're going to be in good shape. And maybe worthy of a little bit of a side note is the stadium is available at professional sports, which is another AoE. This is the last of the AoE amenity buildings. Finally, moving into the info era, the only one really worthy of pointing out, in my opinion, is globalization for International Space Agency. There are games you're going to encounter where you have so much culture for whatever reason that you will hit the final tier of the civics tree before you hit the final tier of the science tree. In other words, your culture is ahead of your science, and this is the strongest science policy in the game besides probably rationalism. So if you can hit this civics tech using culture, you can give a huge boost to your science technology. So if you're going for a space race victory, for example, or even a military victory, having that extra science above and beyond what your opponents have is going to be very, very powerful for you. And I don't think that is true of, for example, the extra culture. If you already had the culture to get to this portion of the tree, you probably don't need a huge additional boost of culture because your culture is probably not doing very much for you at that point. Hopefully, guys, this was helpful. I know there's been a lot of questions about, I'm a newer player. I'm a little bit overwhelmed about what should I be teching for? What should I be looking for in the civics tree? I'm going to do one of these for the civics tree and one of these for the science tree about which technologies are really the ones to look out for and why. And hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Anyways, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button here on YouTube or come follow me on Twitch. I make a lot of Civ6 content, and check out my other guide videos. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. And I'll see you guys soon. Filthy out.